Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to the second part of my Angular e-commerce series of tutorials where we are going to build this modern Angular store, as you can see here. And in this video specifically, in this part, we are going to build the products grid page with the category filters. So as you can see here, we can filter by category here. So we're going to build this whole grid, and there are a lot of steps that we'll need to cover. So the first will be setting up our products data using Signal. Then we'll filter on the category with computed and with root parameters combined. And then we're going to render the product data as a grid on the template. And then we're going to create the product card as a reusable presentational component. And then lastly, we're going to add our category sidebar so that we can have this nice navigation and we can navigate between the states. So a lot to do to make this product grid. Let's get started. But before we do that, just a quick note that as before, if you just want the final code or you want to support the channel, you will find a link in the description from where you can get the final code for this app. Thank you all for your support. Okay, so let's just take a look at what we did in the previous section. So we can continue from there. So in the previous section, we actually completed the toolbar at the top here. And then we had a product grid component which we created and we routed from the products route here. Okay. We also had the wish list, but we're going to make that later. So we're going to go back to products grid and develop this completely here. So first of all, let's set up all of our data that we need for this grid, the products grid. So we need three basically sets of data on this UI so that we can actually use it. So first of all, we need the all products data. Okay, so this is going to be an array of all of the products that we want to show on the UI. Secondly, we need the category that is selected. So we will have a menu on the left side. We're going to develop this at the end. But we need data which is going to represent the current category that has been selected. And then lastly, we'll have the products filtered on. Now this will be based on the category selected, as you can see here. So as soon as the category is changed or the product is changed, the products filtered on will change, and these products filtered on we are actually going to show on the UI. Okay, so where do we start? So first what we want to do is we want to define an interface or a type for our product data so that it becomes easier for us to catch bugs at compile time if there is any mismatch between the types and whatever we want to do with it. Okay, so let's go to our code now. So we are going to go in my main app here. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this models, and I'm going to keep it really simple and keep one file for each model. So here we're going to do product ts, and then we are going to do export type product, and I'm just gonna disable the cursor tab because it can become really irritating. Okay, so I already have the interface here. So firstly, I would want it to have an ID string, then the name of the product, then we'll have a description of the product, and the price, which will be a number. Then we have an image URL, which will be a string, and we'll have a rating, which will be a number. You'll have a review count, which actually tells you how many reviews this product has. And then we have another special indicator, which tells us about the stock level of this product. And then lastly, we'll have a category, which will be a string. Okay, so this is going to tell you on which category this product belongs to. Okay, so this is the type that we are going to use for now. We're going to add more later when we need it. For example, we need the reviews data as well in the future, but this will do for now. Okay, so we have our type here, and now we can go in your products grid and we can define our products data here. So how do we define your data or your properties in your Angular components? Well, this calls for a primer on Angular Signals now. So Angular Signals is basically the newest API that Angular provides to store data values which are reactive. That means which are going to be automatically updated on the UI if you define them. So this is sort of the standard way, a future-proof way to define data in your Angular components, especially if the data is changing, all right? So especially if it's dynamic. So in our product data, for example, specifically is going to change. We're going to get it maybe from the API call, then we're going to filter on it. So it is best to use signals for that purpose, okay? So what is a signal? Basically, it's a container and it has a container that has a value inside of it, all right? So a superstar in the Angular community is Deborah Korata, who came up with this concept of a box. So signal is like a box, and to unpack that box, you basically use this brackets just like you're calling a function, all right? This is going to get the value of the signal. And then you can also set the value of the signal to change it, to change the value within that signal, all right? And the great thing about using this signal is that Angular is going to track any changes to that signal and is going to automatically update the places where the signal's value is being read. So let's create our first signal and let's define our products data with it. So we're going to define our products data here. We're going to call this products. And this is going to be a signal here. We're getting it from signal Angular core. And then we can give a type of it. So we already have a type which we defined, which will be the product. And then we will have an array of products. And then initially, signal always has to have an initial value, or it can have undefined if you'd like to. But in our case, we can give an empty value here like this. But we want to give our initial data as well, because this is currently a static app. We're not getting our data from the backend as yet, all right? So what we're going to do is that I'm going to copy in some data that I already have. And this data basically was generated through AI. And AI is really great in these sorts of things, and it really makes our life easy in this case. So if you want to replicate this, you can actually just ask any AI to do that, to give this interface the type that we have defined, and ask it to generate a set of products that you want to use. So we're going to save this, and that's it. We have our first signal defined here. Okay, so the second type of data that we want is the selected category, which will be just a string. And we want this data should come from the URL root. So how do we set it up? Okay, so first of all, we need to set up a root param for our category. And let's go in our root here. So the way to do that would be to go in our app.roots here, and in our products path here, we can give a category here like this. Okay, so this means that this is going to be a parameter, and only if the path matches this product slash a category name, a string, then it's going to route to this component, all right, which is exactly what we want. And in fact, we can now redirect to all here, because we want to redirect to all initially. So now if we see, we'll see that in products all, we are getting the products rate again as well here, right? This. Okay, so we have the root will be sending this, but how do we actually read it in our component? Well, there's a new feature that was added in Angular 16, I think, and that makes it really easy. So all you have to do is that you have to go in app.config for that purpose. And if I show you here, it's the with component input binding property of the router. Okay, so we're going to go in our provide router, and we're going to just give with component input binding here like this. Okay, now what this does is that this is going to make available the root parameter that we have here, for example, that we have here all, is going to make it available in the component, the product component, as an input signal. All right. But the thing is that this is going to be read only, because you don't want it to be changed from the component itself. This will only come from the root here. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to just go in your products grid, and in your products grid here, we can define, now the name has to be the same, so we can define it as an input here like this. Great. And this is going to be a string, and initially we can make it all, and I can then use it or listen to it or combine it with other data to filter out the products grid. Okay, so that brings us to the third data that we need, and that data is basically the filtered products. Okay, so we have two signals at this point. So we have all products, which is this signal here, and we have the category, which is the selected category, which is coming from the root parameters. And we want to create a filtered products combined with this, and this calls for using the computed API, which is part of the signals set of APIs. And computed is basically a read-only signal which is derived from other signals, so its value cannot be set explicitly. It will only be updated when any of these two things update. Okay, so making all of this flow really reactive. All right, so how do we create a filtered products here like this? So we're going to do filtered products and computed. Now this is basically a function, and it's really simple. We are going to see this dot products, the value of the signal, and we're going to do filter and see, or in fact we should do p, because this is a product, p dot category is equals to, and let's do this dot category. This is also a signal, so we get its value, and just to be sure, we also make it lowercase, so that it also matches if there are any differences in the case of the input parameter. All right, so just in this one line of code, we are actually getting our filtered products, and it's going to automatically change whenever the products signal changes or whenever the category signal changes, all because of the power of the Angular Signals API. So this prepares our data now for rendering on the UI. Okay, so now it's time to render our products grid on the UI. So to render the products grid, we need to know about three Angular concepts. So the first is the for control flow loop. Now, why do we need this? Because our data is basically a signal of a product. So when we have arrays, Angular provides a for control flow loop to actually loop through those items, and then we can display each of them in turn. And then we are going to look at the text interpolation and the property binding, in which we're going to bind our data in different ways on the UI, all right? So first, let's add some styling here. So we're gonna, in our products grid, I'm gonna add some basic styling so that it looks good. And we have BG gray 100, and we have P6, a bit of padding. Then we're going to the heading, which in our case will be text to Excel, font bold, text gray 900. And this is basically be our store category, the current category which is selected, okay? So in order to show that, we're going to use text interpolation, all right? So if you write here your category like this means that it's going to just show this string as a data here. So you can see we have our category here like this. But what if we want to show a data that has been here, that is here, for example, we want to show the category here. Well, for that, we will use the text interpolation notation, and that is double curly braces here like this. Now, whatever we put in between these two curly braces, Angular is going to substitute that with its value in the component, all right? So we're going to use category here like this and the value of the signal here like this, okay? So let's save this, and now you can see that we have all here, which comes from the root parameter here. If we change this, you can see, let's say electronic, you're going to see that we have electronics here. Great. So this is the concept of text interpolation, which is the first thing that you need to know about showing your component data on the UI, binding it on the UI, right? Okay, so next let's go ahead and let's add up this section here at the bottom, which will be the actual grid, all right? Now, in order to show the grid, I already have a class that I added in my styles or Sass here, and it's basically called responsive grid. This is basically the best way that I find to create a responsive grid. That means a grid which, which adjusts its columns based on the screen size, and it's all CSS based. So I really like this way. So I'm going to use this in multiple places. So I have defined it in styles or Sass here. Okay. So here then I'm going to use this responsive grid, and this is going to turn all of the items within it into a grid format. We're going to do for, and you can see we already have this for block thing here. So it's going to give us it in from the autocomplete. And then the item in our case is a product, and we want the products or the filtered products. As you can see here, we have the filtered product signal. So what we want is we want the filtered products here, the value of the filtered products. And the track is basically we need to have a unique index. If you're coming from the React world, you'll be familiar with the key that is used to ensure that the rendering is performant. So in this case, in Angular's case, we need the ID of this. So we are going to use the product.id here like this. And now within this for, we will get each of the product, and we can now display that product according to what we want here. Okay. So let's start with a div, and let's just create a basic information about the card. I'm just going to add some basic styling here. So I'm going to do BG white cursor pointer. I'm going to make it rounded, Excel, and a bit of shadow, overflow hidden, and a bit of flex and flex column to arrange it and make its height full, extend it to the whole area that it has. And we are also going to add some hover styles, but I'm going to add that later. Okay, so we have this basic style here. So let's first display the image here like this. So now the image has a source property, and image is basically a DOM element. So for any DOM element or for any component, Angular can actually bind any property to a component data here by using the square braces, all right? So if you go back here, you can see this is the next way of connecting the component code with the template itself. So the first one was we can use just string interpolation, but to actually bind to specific properties, DOM properties, you can actually use the property binding syntax with this, all right? This source, we are going to do something like this, and then within that, we are going to give product image URL here. Now this is going to substitute this source for the image with the product.image URL value here, okay? All right. So I'm going to add some other styling for the image here as well. So I'm going to make this about 300 pixels here like this. I'm going to make this object cover to make it look good. And I'm also going to make it rounded from the top only to match the container. And now let's see whether we have something. Okay, so we can see the images are appearing fine here. They look good. And there's also some shadow on the cards and everything. One thing that we need to actually keep this inside of this, because this is actually the whole container. So we're going to keep this here like this. And we need some margin bottom here at the top. So we're going to do margin bottom 6 here to give it some space at the top here like this. Okay. So this looks good. And now we can continue adding the product info. And so we are going to add the div below that, which is going to contain our rest of the cards data. And we're going to say class, we're going to add a padding of 5. We're going to make it flex column and flex 1 so that it takes up all of the available space below. And then we're going to give the name of the product here. So we're going to do text LG, font semi-bold, text gray 900. And this is all Tailwind. So it makes it really, really easy to apply these values. So leading tight is basically going to change the letter spacing between the text. Okay. So for H3, then we are going to then again use text interpolation because we want to show our name here. So we're going to just do product dot name here like this. Okay. So now let's save this and see how this looks like. So you can see the title looks great here, and you have this nice thing. And also you can see here that the whole height doesn't extend to the end, which it should extend here till here. So for that, actually we can go back in app.ts, and in our router outlet we can give a parent here, a parent div, which can become our container. Okay, and this parent and this div is then going to be height, and we're going to use a calc 100% minus 64 pixel, and then we're going to do overflow. Okay, so now it's here. Now we're just going to do h full in the product grid here, and we can just give this h full. So this is going to extend it to the end of the screen here, as you can see. All right. So our products grid is looking good till now, and we have learned about all of the ways to bind our data with the template in Angular. Okay, so we can continue building the product card here like this, just in this component, but it's going to get it really huge. And best practice in Angular is to subdivide your component into subcomponents so that it makes it easier to maintain in the future, right? So what we're going to do is that we want to encapsulate all of the product card functionality and the visual layout into a separate component so that we can also reuse it later when we want to create another product card in other components. So we are going to create a new component called product card, and we are going to create it a presentational component. All right. So what is a presentational component? So components can be of different types. The two main types are basically a presentational component, and the other is a smart or a container component perhaps. So a presentational component means that it's only going to have inputs and outputs. It won't have any links with the state or the global state or, dependency injection. So it's going to be standalone, so you can reuse it in different places in your app. They're also called dumb components, okay? So they're only used to show the input and give the output back. So in our case, the product card is basically a good candidate for that because we need to reuse it in multiple places. So let's create a new product card here, and let's add this maybe in another folder, which we're going to call as components. So these components are basically shared components, which we might use in different screens or in different pages, all right? So that is why we are creating this here. So let's then create a new component using our CLI here, ngg-c, and we are going to create it in components here like this. And we're going to call this the product card. All right, so we have a product card created here. And now then we can shift all of this div. We can do Control X and we can go in product card and we can just paste this here. Okay. Now, of course, we have a problem that is saying that where is product? It does not exist on this. So for that, we need an input from where we are going to get the product data here. So we are going to define an input here, and post signals in Angular, all inputs should now be signal inputs, all right? This makes them reactive and easier to use on the template. So we are going to create a product here like this. This is going to be an input here, and we can specify a type here like this. So it will have all of the product data, and we can make this initially undefined, or we can also say that, okay, we can make it required here like this. So it doesn't have to have an initial value. Okay, so we have the product, and now we can do, instead of product, we can do product signal here like this, product name here like this. Great. And then we can go back to the products grid. And as you saw before, how do you actually use a component within another component in Angular? You will need to do app.product card here. Okay. And we will need to import product card from this. So it's going to add it in the imports here, and it's going to add it in the TypeScript import at the top here. and it's giving an error because it says that, okay, it has a required input that you need. So we need to send in the product here. And here then you can see the example of property binding again. So you can also bind the inputs of your custom components in Angular by using property binding syntax here like this. Okay, so we're going to give here the product. Great, so nice and simple. And now when you save this, you're going to see that we have the same layout that we had before. Right? And in fact, we can also go in all here. So as you can see in all, it doesn't show anything because there's no category. So we need to add some slight modification here in our computed. We can actually just add a condition here. We can do if this dot category is equals to all, then we can simply return this dot products. Otherwise, we can return this dot products for this. Okay, great. So now with all, you can see that we have all of our products here displayed like this. And if you want to filter, you can see we can go in home, for example. You can see we have these three, and here we can also have electronics here as we had before. Right? Great. So just a small touch up, and now we can continue developing the product card. So we have already given the input. We will come to the output, but we first need to develop the card further. So let's add the rest of the stuff. So this was H3, this was the product name. Let's also add our product description. It's going to be a paragraph, and let's style this a bit. So I'm going to call this text SM, text gray 600, margin bottom 4, flex 1, and leading relaxed. Okay, and within that we're going to use the interpolation again, and we will do product dot description here like this. And then below that we want to add a star rating, but for that we will need to create a reusable component, so we're going to do that later. Let's add a comment here, and let's say that add rating component, right? And then let's add the stock status. Okay, let's add a stock status here, and this stock status is going to be class text SM, font medium, margin bottom 4, and within that then we can do product if it is in stock. So since this is text interpolation, we can give any type of expression, JavaScript expression here. So we're going to use the ternary operator here, and we're going to do product.inStock. So if it is in stock, we're going to write here in stock here like this. If it's out of the stock, we're going to say out of stock here like this. Okay. So now Angular is going to evaluate this expression and calculate whatever it needs to show here using text interpolation. Okay. Now the last part, if you can see here, the component here, you can see that our cards are looking nice here, and we have this in stock, in stock, in stock. We have one product which is out of stock, so we can see that as well. In stock, and you can see, yeah, this is out of stock. Okay. So you can see this is a way to conditionally render things. Okay. And the last part will be our pricing part. So we're going to do div class, and this is going to be flex. So item center, justify between, and margin top auto, and we'll have a span here, which is going to be the price. It's going to be text to Excel, font bold for the pricing, text gray 900, and then here we need to give this escape character as well, so that it shows a dollar sign, otherwise it's going to confuse it. And we can now give product price here like this. Okay, let's see how the product price looks like. Oh, this looks nice, big and obvious to the user. And then with that, we are also going to give a button, and this button is going to be your matte button. You already know how to create matte buttons now, so we are going to create a filled button, which will be the primary button. We are going to also add an icon inside of it, so we will add some of our custom layout so that we can make it look nice. And then within this, we are going to have our matte icon first. This is going to be shopping underscore cart, right? And the text is going to read add to cart here like this. All right, so we need to import our matte button and matte icon here in this as well. So matte button we already have, matte icon we need here. So as you can see, it automatically imports it once you have done it once. All right, and now you can see we have our cart pretty much ready here, nicely formatted, and we have our add to cart button here nicely formatted as well. Okay, so now you can also see here how to actually create an output, because I just want to add it here for completeness. But basically, we might not need to use it in the future because you will be directly binding with the store. But I just wanted to show you how to actually do that. So when we are going to click on this button, we want to add to cart here like this. All right. And then here we can give an add to cart clicked, and this is going to be output. Now this output is we get from, as you can see, from Angular core, and we can also specify a type here, but in this case we already know the product and we can actually send the product along with it, just to specify that that's okay. So we can do add to cart clicked, and we can also, in fact, we don't need to give a function here, bind to a function here. We can do add to cart clicked dot emit, and we can just give the product here again like this. Okay, so this is going to send an event back to the parent of the product here. So we can listen to this product event here in this way. So we have a add to cart clicked, and then we can have any event handler here like this, and we can have the product here as well given as $event. So we're going to get the product here from that, and then we can do add to cart and do whatever you want to do here like this. Okay, so this is a way to actually create a reusable presentational component in Angular. And I usually really create a completely presentational component because I usually bind it to the NGRX signal store to actually achieve the output functionality or the event. But I do use the inputs a lot, so it really helps. Okay, so let's just remove this because we don't need it for now. We're going to add functionality later when we already have the store. Okay, so we have our products grid pretty much built up here, the layout, but we want to add the category sidebar so that the user can select it and user can go to the different routes by selecting that navigation list on the sidebar. So how do we do that? Well, there are a few steps to it. So we're going to use the Angular Materials side nav to create that side nav on the left side. We do this because it has a built-in functionality that we want to use. And then we also have the Angular Material Navigation list, which is sort of a pre-made navigation list that we can use. And then we have Angular pipes, which I'm going to show you how to use them for formatting. And then we're going to use the activated list item to actually highlight the currently selected list item. Okay, so let's start with Angular Material side nav first. We'll need to import our mat side nav classes. So we're going to do mat side nav. In fact, we need to import it first from here. So import mat side nav container. Then we'll have mat side nav content, and then we'll have the mat side nav itself. So these three will be from Angular Material side nav. Okay, so let's import these here as well. So mat side nav container and mat side nav content here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is that we're going to change the layout a bit here. So we're going to enclose all of this in a mat side nav container. Okay, this allows the material side nav to actually add the functionality for opening, closing the side nav and all of that stuff. And then we are going to create a mat side nav content and actually add these classes here. Okay, and then within that we are going to add all of this to your content itself. So this will be our main content. So you can see we already have our mat side nav shown in the mat side nav container. All right. Okay, we do have some issue here in the toolbar here, so we might need to add a sort of a Z index here so that it comes on top of everything else. Yeah, and a relative is to actually make it look the same as before. Okay, so now it looks good, and now we can then go in our product grid again and we continue to develop that. So we're going to add now our mat side nav here, which is going to contain our category sidebar. So there is an over mode and there is a side mode. We want to keep it in the side mode for now. Okay. Secondly, we want to also keep it opened. So we're going to keep it opened here and we're going to say open true here. Let's save this. And you can now see that we have our sidebar showing up with our hello text here. So let's build upon this and let's add our material navigation list. So first of all, we are also going to add something at the top here, and that is going to be a bit of container. So we're going to give it some padding. So we're going to say P6, and then within that, we are going to first create an H2. This will have text LG text gray 900, and it's just going to say categories like this. Great. And then we're going to define nav list here. So mat nav list is basically just a special type of list which can directly bind to root and route to our specific route. Okay, so let's import it from here. So we're going to say import mat nav list from Angular. Now this may be a bit slow here because I'm doing everything by hand, but if you use AI for this purpose, it's really fast. So we're going to go in list here. Okay, like this. And we're going to import this here as well. So mat nav list. And so we have our mat nav list imported here. No errors here anymore. And now for each of these, we will have a category that we need to show. So first then we need a categories data as well here. So we're going to define another signal and we are going to call this signal, and the type here will be string array because I'm just keeping it as a string here. All right. So this is then going to be something like this. Okay. So all of the categories in lowercase here like this. Okay. Then as I said that how do we show iterators or arrays of data? We again use the for control flow loop, and you can see we can use the block here like this. And then for each of the category, then we can do category of categories and give a signal here, the value of the signal, and we can track it just by the category name because they're unique. And then within that, we are going to give a mat list item here like this. Okay. Can we import this? Yes, we can import this from node module angular material list index, but actually we're going to change this. So I'm going to make it into mat list item here like this. Okay. So mat list item basically adds a lot of formatting that it needs to show to look good. So we're just going to leave this as it is, and we're going to just give a bit of class here to give it a margin. And then within each of the mat list item, we just want to show the text, and we're going to show a span here, and it will have a special directive mat list item title. Okay, this is going to format it using the title formatting on the material design website. Okay, so mat list item title, and then we're going to show using text interpolation the category here like this. Okay, so let's see how this looks now. So as you can see, we have this red color thingy. Okay, so why is it red? So it is apparently I added this by mistake here. So list item label text color red here. So I'm just going to change this, and it should go back to normal here as a black. Okay, so we have our navigation list. We need to also obviously link it with the specific route. So let's do that, and let's go in our product grid here, and let's also import router link. Okay, and for each of the mat list item, then we want to add a router link here like this. Okay, and as you can see that we are binding to the router link property of this mat list item. So this is also property binding. All right, and we are going to bind it to an array here like this, and the router link basically can take an array. We can build the sort of the route or the URL by giving parts of it. So first we're going to do products, and then we're going to simply do category here like this. So it's going to automatically join them with the slash here. Okay, we don't need to do it manually ourselves. And now we test things out. It's all, if you click on electronics, you can see that it routes to electronics, and because it routes to electronics, it changes the input signal here, the electronics, and it filters it. Then we have clothing, it gets the clothes here. So you can see all of the flow is reactive by default. We just need to define how the data will filter using signals and computers, and it basically automatically handled everything else. Great. So you have this pretty much complete, but let's add some formatting issues here. So you can see that the categories are lowercase. We want to make them title case, but only for the formatting here as well. So let's add the concept of pipes in the mix as well. Okay, so pipes are basically in Angular, they are reusable logic that we can actually apply to format parts of the UI, okay, parts of the data. So Angular provides a lot of built-in pipe, and one of those pipes is to do with title case or lowercase or uppercase. So we're going to use that pipe, and I'm going to show you how we can use that pipe. So we're going to first import that. We're going to say title case here, title case pipe. Okay, it imports it from Angular common, and then we want to show this category as a title case. So we are just going to use this pipe operator here, and we're going to use title case here like this, and it's going to automatically format this to title case. So let's save this and see how this looks. And now you can see we have our categories in the correct case. All right. Now all that is left now is to actually highlight the specific category which has been selected. And how do we do that? Well, the material list item basically has a property called activated. So we can add an activated property here and bind it to basically whether category is equals to our selected category, which is category here like this. Okay. So now we have a conflict here. So let's make this cat, I think, so that we can remove this conflict here, cat, and let's also make this cat and this as well. Okay, this as well. Okay, so now this is actually the category within the list, this loop, and then this category is our selected category. Okay, and if they're going to be equal, then that means that this item should be activated. So let's save this and check out how this looks like. And now you can see the all is selected here and the all category is selected here. If you click on clothing, you can see this changes, the selection changes. But you can also see that the text doesn't change, so we need to add some special handling for the text. And here we can introduce the concept of dynamic class binding, or you can say conditional class binding. Okay, till now we have only used static classes that we can apply, but we can also in Angular apply classes conditionally. And to do that, we can use the class with the property binding square braces here like this, and then within this we can give an expression. Okay, so here what we want to give is the same expression, category. In fact, cat is equals to category. So if these are equal, then we can give a class of text white. Otherwise, we can just give null here. Okay, so null means that there won't be any extra class applied to this. I think we need to make it important as well to apply it. Yes, and now you can see that our text is white here as well, giving it a nice visual feel. Okay, great. And now the last thing we need is just to do this title case here as well. Apply the pipe here to this text as well so that it looks good. And we can then go in your content here like this. And in this category, we can also do the same thing here like this. It's going to show things fine. Below this, we can also have a nice looking small text here, something like this. So we can say here that we have P. We can make this class text base, text gray, 600. And in fact, we can add a margin bottom 1 here, and we can add a margin bottom 6 here. All right. And then within that, we are going in our text interpolation. What we're going to do is we are going to just say that, okay, we have filtered products, signal, and dot length. So we want to show the length here and how many products were found. So we can say products found, okay, and just save this. And now you can see that we have our nice indicator here, and you can see that the length changes according to the signal here. Okay, great. Okay, so our products list looks really good, as you can see, and it seems to be complete. It works, but the problem is that our products data at this point is contained within just one component, as you can see here. So it is contained within the products grid. Now, what if you want to share this data in different components here? So we will need this products data in the wish list as well, creating the checkout and all of this other stuff. So we will need to share this products data with other components. How do we do that? So this is one of the main issues that we need to deal. And in the next video, I'm going to give you an introduction and some advanced stuff about the NGRX signal store and state management. So we're going to build the global state shared data where we can actually store this products data and the other functionality as well. Now this also leads to better organization, because then all of this data is going to be shifted into their specific sections in the NGRX signal store, where we can easily find out where we have the computers, where we have the state, where we have the methods to change this data. So it will all be really organized. And secondly, it also leads to business logic being separate from the component. So the component then becomes only responsible to display data, and all of the manipulation, the data manipulation, the logic remains in your state manager. Okay, so this is basically a short overview of why you need state management in your web application. And we are going to see all of this in the next episode, part 3, where we are going to build up our NGRX signal store and shift all of this functionality there so that we can reuse it in different areas of the app in the coming parts. Okay, so stay tuned, and I'm going to see you next time in the next part. I hope you enjoyed this. And as always, if you like the code for it, be sure to check out the link in the description. Thanks for watching.